try and talk really slowly because I know that some of you don't understand me. And also this is not going to be very long, which is fine. So yes, hello. For those that don't know me, I'm Rachel. I was asked to share for a few minutes what God has taught me this year. Sorry, I'm also going to be reading from my phone, so please don't take it personally if I don't look up at you. So since this year has started, I feel that God has taken away some people whose friendship I'd stumbled into since I moved to Australia. Like, just randomly came across them and became friends with them. But actually, their influence wasn't very healthy, and that was tricky for me because, I just indulged in stuff I probably shouldn't have. But just wanted it to be fun and, I wanted to be liked, I guess. Just like any 27-year-old, I don't know. I knew that whenever I wasn't with them, I felt better for being away from them as well, which was tricky, but just kind of went along with it. But anyway, their friendship, they actually walked out of my life themselves. There was a bit of drama. We all love drama as young adults. And then they just left. And actually, it was really good that they left. I felt better for it. The change was just really uncomfortable and scary, but also refining as well. And then that's just made space for what's next. And actually, God has something so much better for what's next. And that's brought me a lot of excitement as well. As a young adult, I just really enjoyed the wrong things and living in the denial that it was fun and happy and whatever. And actually now I'm free from that denial, and that's actually way better than I thought it was ever going to be. So that's super fun. And the best way I can describe it is it's like a roller coaster. I ended up at the front of this line for this roller coaster that I don't know what's next, and it's probably going to be really scary, but actually is really exciting to go on and to see what God's got planned for me. I'm kind of because I run at 1,000 miles an hour, right? So actually slowing down is the scary part as well, where I'm what does that mean is going to happen? There's been a Bible verse that I wanted to share when I was thinking about this with Sam the other day. And it's 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. And it's, "For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace." And I guess I'm just going to try and see what God has in store for me in this season of trying to be more peaceful, even though I'm super not. That's kind of all I've got. Okay.
Form, and over to you, Manny.
Just shows what you can achieve when you put in the effort, I suppose. Not that I do very often. It was wonderful to actually... Rachel, 27 years old. Where was I when I was 27? Far from God, to be honest. That was the truth. And Prashan, the heat of new faith. Us old believers sometimes get a bit threatened by that, as was pointed out. So, good morning. My name is Manny, and it is my privilege to serve here at Inglewood. Now, I've said that a few hundred times, and many of you would have heard me say it. And I've stepped up here, and I've presented communion and community prayer. Some of you might know the story of how I ended up here, but some of you don't. So how did I end up here? So I got here because God refused to let me go. So let me tell you some of my story. This is probably 1%. Peter worked very hard to trim me down, otherwise we'd be here most of the day. I was born in Romania in 1970, yes, last century. In 1980, my parents migrated to Melbourne. At that time, I was the oldest of 5 children. In 1985, my parents decided to move to Perth. By that stage, my younger sister had been born, so the 8 of us, and along with another family of 3, packed up our lives in 2 trailers and drove across the Nullarbor. My dad had been called as a pastor of the First Romanian Baptist Church in Melbourne, well, in Australia actually, as they like to name themselves. That's how we ended up in Australia. But still, after 5 years there, he and Mum felt the Holy Spirit's call to move to the west of the country and start a ministry to the Romanians living in Perth and in the surrounding areas. We were joined by another small family that was already living here and a van full of other believers, Romanians, and the Romanian Baptist Church was started. We first met in a classroom of Emmanuel Community Christian School, probably around the time that you would have been there. And then we ended up at the Osborne Park Adventist Church in their building because it suited their meeting on Saturday, and we met on Sundays and we could use the facilities both morning and afternoon. However, we eventually moved into a permanent home in what used to be the Bayswater Baptist Church. So at age 19, I found myself in the middle of a church moving and renovating process at every level as the unofficial translator of all official communications between the church and the Baptist Union. Around this time, I became aware of the Bedford Baptist Church. As next-door neighbours, they helped the Romanians several times and in some quite difficult situations as we were finding our feet as a new church. However, despite being born into this very faithful, very tight-knit Christian family, my faith was not doing very well. Despite getting baptised in my late teens, by my mid-20s I had begun to drift further and further from God, so that by my late 20s I turned my back on the church and no longer attended any services. I like to call these my wilderness years, where I thought I was wandering, but looking back, God was ever present. My family still loved me and they never stopped praying for me. To those people that prayed for 690 days, well done. Sometimes it takes longer than that, but I have a wonderful family that never gave up, especially Mum. Now, because of the solid foundation I had got in church, as I wandered out in the world, I began to form my own views of God and what he meant to me and who I was as a person. At the ripe old age of 34, I got married to Jeannie. She wasn't a Christian at the time, but even so, I now see God's hand at work. By that stage, I was more amenable to turning back to God, and like the prodigal son, I'd begun to realise that life in my father's house was infinitely better than life out in the wilderness. However, despite wanting to start attending church regularly, sleep was always a better option. Soon, Jeannie and I tried having children, and with great difficulty. There was an extended period of specialists and blood tests and all manner of consultations. She finally did get pregnant, but had a miscarriage soon thereafter. It was a very difficult period in our marriage. But with God's grace and our sheer determination to just hold on to each other, we managed to make it through. We got another cat and decided that we were enough, even if children weren't to be part of our family. Now, imagine our joy and the joy of our families when in early 2010, Sophie joined us. At the age of 40, I became a father. Now, a few months later, without warning, Jeannie asks me, when are we going to go to church again? I was surprised because it wasn't a desire that she had expressed before. And because she doesn't speak or understand too much Romanian, I decided to look for an English-speaking church in our area. And Bedford immediately came to mind. But Google kept pointing me to some mob called Inglewood Community Church. One evening when I was in the area, I drove past the old Bedford Church building and realised it was shut. And I just felt sad. When I got home later and I got online, I eventually found out that ICC, Inglewood Community Church, was the new combination of the old Bedford Baptist and Inglewood Church of Christ, as we saw the photos up on the screen earlier. And the new fellowship was meeting at the Inglewood Community Centre on the corner of 10th Avenue and Beaufort Street. Jeannie and I had lived in 10th Avenue, renting a house there for the first 18 months of our marriage. And Jeannie's first regular job in Perth was at Mere Cafe, which is the opposite corner to the community centre. So our first faith community was to be in a place very familiar to her, where she already felt comfortable and at home. She started taking Sophie to toddler jam on Wednesdays, and we became regulars on Sunday. And God was refusing to let us go. Around the same time, I made a quiet decision that if I were to come back to church this time, I needed to take it seriously. When home group Sunday, as it was back then, came up, I found out that there was a men's group on Thursdays, and I decided to attend. Now, as a night shift taxi driver at that time, taking 2 hours off each week during what was usually a busy evening was a sacrifice, but I felt it was well worth it. Around the same time, Jeannie asked me if it was okay for her to be baptised. I asked if she knew what that meant and told her she did not need my permission. We approached Mark, who was pastor at the time, and he asked Bev to contact Jeannie to suss her out. And another beautiful relationship was started. I mean, Jeannie and Bev have become fast friends and confidants. She tells me when she meets her, but not much else. When Jeannie was baptised in the Swan River at Bassendean, this was a decision made by Mark at the time, I looked around and realised that I had actually been baptised only a few hundred metres downstream, over 20 years earlier. Another thing that proved that God was not only present but had a weird sense of humour. God was refusing to let me go. Now, 2 years later, we were joined by Esther, whose birth is again a story all of its own, where without God's intervention, I would have become a widower with 2 young daughters, one a toddler and one a newborn. By now, we were regulars at ICC. Those first few years at Inglewood had begun my spiritual transformation, with God speaking to me almost every week through Mark's sermons, because God was refusing to let me go. Mark was also the leader of the men's group, and through our interaction there, he could see that I had something to say, so he invited me to get involved in various ministries, starting off with presenting communion. I even got to play a part in transforming an old warehouse into a new place of worship, again in Bayswater when I was 19, and now in Dianella when I was in my 40s. After we moved into this building, I was asked to lead the men's group. Also, Michael and Monica and O'Neill, who were attending at the time, regularly challenged me to begin theological studies. But I always found an excuse to defer. Finally, I decided to give in and become a tertiary student again. The 4 years I spent at Vos, which then became Morling, were a crucial part of my spiritual formation, because God was refusing to let me go. The intellectual and spiritual discussion with other students were also crucial to transforming me into the man that I am today. I've changed my mind on many positions I thought I was set on, because God called me to wrestle with His word in community and through interactions with others' lived experiences. Oh, and a bonus, I got an associate degree in theology. While my long-term focus isn't on entering ministry, it's been a privilege to participate as a voluntary ministry intern. But the even more ultimate privilege was baptising my daughters. In our own way, all of us in the family participate in the life of this community. Jeannie is part of the worship team in the audio-visual department. Just quietly, she's there to make me sound good. The girls as worship team members on stage, and I'm part of the ministry team. So I guess God has refused to let us go. I have a wonderful extended family, and I consider Inglewood to be a further extension of that family, and it's a family I look forward to seeing each week. This is a fast forward through my life, and as often as I've said yes to the promptings of the Spirit, it's nowhere near as often as I've said no and willfully continued on my own way, following my own desires. And yet God refuses to let me go. God has been faithful. His grace and mercy never cease to surprise and overwhelm me, and I don't deserve any of the countless blessings that He has heaped upon me. The people, the interactions, the community, including all of you here, these are the fingerprints of God all over my life. Now remember that your role in the lives of others will never go unrewarded. God invites us and allows us to participate in His kingdom work. You might not see the results in this lifetime, but one day in glory you will be reunited with all of those who helped and shaped you, and you will see the fruits of all your efforts. But let me finish with this. Wherever you are today, if you're sitting in this church listening to this, or you're online watching it, I would argue that God is refusing to let you go. I've seen it in my life, and I've seen it in the lives of others. God is the God of second, third, and many chances, because God will not let you go. Amen. And now I'd like to invite Janet to come up and present communion.